Question 1. Benchmark analysis indicates that a large enterprise is experiencing an increasing number of security incidents related to unauthorized access and data exfiltration within their VMware vSphere 8 X environment. The security team is tasked with recommending a comprehensive strategy to enhance the security posture. Which of the following approaches best addresses the identified risks while adhering to advanced design principles for vSphere 8 X? Option A. Deploy a single, high-performance intrusion detection system, IDs, at the network perimeter to monitor all traffic entering and leaving the data center. Option B. Integrate a broad spectrum of third-party security tools for endpoint protection, vulnerability scanning, and security information and event management (SIEM), while largely ignoring vSphere's built-in security features. Option C. Focus exclusively on hardening the XE hosts by disabling all non-essential services and applying vendor-provided security patches without addressing VM-level security or access controls. Option D. Implement a multi-layered security strategy that combines granular role-based access control (RBAC), encrypted vMotion, and security-aware distributed resource scheduler (DRS) affinity rules to isolate sensitive workloads. The correct answer is D. Implement a multi-layered security strategy that combines granular role-based access control (RBAC), encrypted vMotion, and security-aware distributed resource scheduler (DRS) affinity rules to isolate sensitive workloads. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational requirements of a high-availability vSphere environment. The challenge lies in identifying and implementing security measures that effectively mitigate risks without introducing performance bottlenecks or operational complexities that could lead to service disruptions. The decision-making process requires a deep understanding of VMware vSphere 8 X security features, best practices, and the potential impact of each security control on the overall system. Careful judgment is needed to select controls that are both effective and practical for the specific environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a layered security strategy, integrating security at multiple levels of the vSphere infrastructure. This aligns with the principle of defense in depth, a fundamental tenet of modern cybersecurity. Specifically, leveraging vSphere's native security features such as role-based access control (RBAC) for granular permission management, encrypted vMotion for secure live migration of virtual machines, and vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler (DRS), with security-aware affinity rules to prevent sensitive workloads from coexisting on the same host, represents best professional practice. These measures are designed to protect data in transit and at rest, control access to critical resources, and ensure the integrity and availability of the virtualized environment. Adherence to VMware security hardening guides and best practices, which are implicitly part of the regulatory framework for environments utilizing VMware products, ensures compliance and reduces the attack surface. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a single, overarching security solution without considering the specific security needs and operational context of different workloads is a regulatory and ethical failure. This approach is often inefficient, may not address all potential threats, and can lead to over-restriction or under-protection of certain components. For example, applying the same stringent security policies to non-sensitive development environments as to production financial systems would be a misallocation of resources and could hinder productivity. Focusing solely on perimeter security, such as network firewalls, while neglecting internal security controls within the vSphere environment, is another significant failure. This overlooks the threat of insider threats or compromised credentials that could bypass external defenses. It violates the principle of least privilege and fails to implement necessary internal segmentation and access controls, leaving the environment vulnerable to lateral movement by attackers. Relying exclusively on third-party security solutions without integrating them with vSphere's native security capabilities is also problematic. While third-party tools can offer valuable enhancements, a complete disregard for native features can lead to redundant controls, increased complexity, and potential conflicts. It also means missing out on the inherent security benefits provided by the vSphere platform itself, which are designed to work cohesively. This can result in a less secure and less manageable environment, potentially failing to meet compliance requirements that mandate the use of all available protective measures. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, continuously assessing threats and vulnerabilities specific to their vSphere environment. This involves understanding the data sensitivity and criticality of different workloads. The decision-making process should prioritize implementing controls that offer the highest impact for mitigating identified risks, while also considering operational feasibility and performance implications. Regular review and updates of security configurations, informed by VMware security advisories and industry best practices, are crucial for maintaining a secure and compliant vSphere infrastructure. Question 2. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of network disruptions impacting critical financial transaction systems, with a moderate likelihood of hardware failures affecting development environments. Given these risks and the need for efficient resource utilization, which disaster recovery strategy best aligns with advanced VMware vSphere 8? X design principles for minimizing business impact. Option A. Replicate all virtual machines with the shortest possible RPO/RTO to a secondary site, regardless of application criticality, to ensure maximum data protection across the board. Option B. Implement a tiered disaster recovery strategy utilizing vSphere replication with aggressive RPO settings for critical financial systems and a less frequent RPO for development environments, complemented by regular, automated backups for non-critical systems. Option C. Rely on manual, daily backups of all virtual machines to an off-site location, with a plan to restore systems only in the event of a complete site failure. Option D. Focus solely on high-availability configurations within the primary data center for all systems, assuming that network disruptions are infrequent and localized. The correct answer is B. Implement a tiered disaster recovery strategy utilizing vSphere replication with aggressive RPO settings for critical financial systems and a less frequent RPO for development environments, complemented by regular, automated backups for non-critical systems. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design, balancing the need for robust disaster recovery capabilities with the operational realities of resource constraints and potential business impact. The professional challenge lies in interpreting the risk matrix, which quantifies potential threats and their impact, and translating that into a technically sound and cost-effective DR strategy that aligns with business objectives and regulatory compliance. The requirement to adhere strictly to the 3V0-21, 23 VMware vSphere 8X Advanced Design Exams Implied Jurisdiction, which we will assume for this exercise, is a generic, non-specific regulatory environment focused on IT best practices and data protection principles, as no specific jurisdiction was provided, means the chosen solution must be justifiable based on industry standards and the principles of data integrity, availability, and security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified risks with a tiered strategy. By prioritizing critical applications based on their RTO/RPO requirements and business impact, it ensures that the most vital services receive the highest level of protection, minimizing potential downtime and data loss. This aligns with general data protection principles and IT governance frameworks that mandate business continuity and disaster recovery planning. Use of vSphere replication for less critical workloads offers a cost-effective and manageable solution that still provides a degree of resilience. This layered approach demonstrates a thorough understanding of the technology's capabilities and the business's needs, leading to an optimized and justifiable DR solution. An incorrect approach that solely focuses on replicating all virtual machines with the shortest RPO/RTO, regardless of criticality, will be professionally unacceptable. This is because it likely represents a significant overprovisioning of resources and unnecessary expense, failing to demonstrate fiscal responsibility and efficient resource management. While it might offer the highest level of protection, it doesn't align with the principle of proportionality in risk management, where the cost of mitigation should be commensurate with the risk. Furthermore, it could lead to performance degradation of the production environment due to the overhead of constant replication. Another incorrect approach, such as relying solely on manual backups for all systems, would be professionally unacceptable due to its inherent unreliability and slow recovery times. Manual backups are prone to human error, often lack granular recovery options, and are not designed for the rapid RTO/RPO requirements of modern business-critical applications. This approach would fail to meet even moderate recovery objectives and would expose the organization to significant data loss and prolonged downtime, violating fundamental principles of business continuity and data availability. The decision-making process for professionals in similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of the risk matrix, a clear understanding of business objectives and application criticality, and a comprehensive knowledge of available VMware vSphere DR technologies. This involves 1. Identifying and categorizing risks and their potential impact. 2. Defining RTO and RPO for each application tier based on business requirements. 3. Evaluating the cost-benefit analysis of different DR solutions for each tier. 4. Selecting technologies and configurations that meet the defined RTO/RPO within budgetary constraints. 5. Documenting the DR plan and regularly testing its effectiveness. This structured approach ensures that the DR strategy is not only technically sound, but also aligned with business needs and regulatory expectations for resilience. Question 3. Investigation of a critical application's disaster recovery strategy reveals that the current backup-based approach cannot meet the stringent RPO and RTO requirements mandated by the organization's industry-specific regulatory framework. The application resides in a highly segmented network environment, with strict firewall rules governing intersegment communication. The organization is considering a new DR solution that involves replicating data to a secondary site. Which of the following approaches best aligns with both the RPO/RTO objectives and the regulatory compliance requirements for data security and network segmentation? Option A. Deploy vSphere replication to the secondary site but configure network exceptions to bypass existing firewall rules for faster data transfer, prioritizing RTO over strict segmentation. Option B. Implement a stretched cluster across both sites and utilize vSphere replication, ensuring all network configurations strictly adhere to the established security zones and firewall rules. Option C. Adopt a third-party replication tool that does not integrate with vSphere's native networking and security features, focusing solely on RPO/RTO without regard for existing network segmentation policies. Option D. Implement a stretched cluster, but rely on periodic manual backups from the primary site for recovery at the secondary site, deeming replication unnecessary for compliance. The correct answer is B. Implement a stretched cluster across both sites and utilize vSphere replication, ensuring all network configurations strictly adhere to the established security zones and firewall rules. Explanation: Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common but complex challenge in advanced vSphere design, ensuring robust and compliant disaster recovery (DR) capabilities for critical applications. The challenge lies in balancing RPO/RTO objectives with the intricacies of network segmentation, security policies, and the specific requirements of the regulatory framework governing the organization's data. Failure to adequately address these aspects can lead to significant business disruption, data loss, and severe regulatory penalties. The need for a deep understanding of vSphere features, network architecture, and compliance mandates makes this a professionally demanding situation. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a stretched cluster with vSphere replication across geographically dispersed sites, while ensuring that the network configuration adheres strictly to the defined security zones and firewall rules as mandated by the organization's compliance framework, represents best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the RPO/RTO requirements by providing near-synchronous data replication and rapid failover capabilities. Crucially, it prioritizes compliance by integrating the DR solution within the existing, regulated network security posture. This ensures that data in transit and at rest during a DR event remains within the bounds of approved security controls, thereby meeting regulatory obligations for data protection and segregation. Incorrect approaches analysis. A strategy that relies solely on vSphere replication without a stretched cluster and attempts to bypass established network segmentation rules for faster RTO is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to meet the stringent RPO/RTO requirements for critical applications, and more importantly, introduces significant regulatory and ethical failures. Bypassing established network segmentation and firewall rules directly violates security policies designed to protect sensitive data, potentially leading to unauthorized access and data breaches. This contravenes regulations that mandate data integrity and confidentiality. Another incorrect approach involves implementing a stretched cluster but neglecting to configure vSphere replication, relying instead on manual data backups for DR. This is professionally unsound because it fails to meet the defined RPO/RTO objectives for critical applications, as manual backups are inherently slower and less reliable for rapid recovery. From a regulatory standpoint, this approach demonstrates a failure to implement adequate business continuity and disaster recovery plans as often required by compliance frameworks, risking data loss and noncompliance with data availability mandates. Finally, adopting a DR solution that does not integrate with or respect the existing network security zones and firewall rules, even if it meets RPO/RTO, is professionally flawed. This creates a security vulnerability and a compliance gap. The regulatory failure here is the creation of an insecure DR environment that does not align with the organization's overall security architecture and compliance policies, potentially exposing data to risks that the established security framework was designed to prevent. Professional reasoning. Professionals faced with such a scenario must adopt a systematic decision-making process. This begins with a thorough understanding of the business requirements, specifically the RPO and RTO for critical applications. Concurrently, a deep dive into the applicable regulatory framework is essential to identify all mandates related to data protection, availability, and security. The design phase must then focus on integrating vSphere features, like stretched clusters and vSphere replication, with the existing network infrastructure and security controls in a manner that demonstrably meets both business and regulatory objectives. Any proposed solution must be rigorously tested against these requirements, with clear documentation of how compliance is maintained throughout the DR lifecycle. Question 4. What factors determine the most effective strategy for achieving near-zero recovery point objective RPO and rapid recovery time objective RTO in a VMware vSphere 8X environment when implementing a disaster recovery solution? Option A. The frequency of traditional full backups and the ease of restoring individual virtual machine files from these backups. Option B. The complexity of the virtual machine configurations and the total number of virtual machines in the vSphere environment. Option C. The cost of the disaster recovery software license and the number of available physical servers at the secondary site. Option D. The specific capabilities of asynchronous replication technologies, the underlying storage array's performance characteristics, and the available network bandwidth between the primary and secondary sites. The correct answer is D. The specific capabilities of asynchronous replication technologies, the underlying storage array's performance characteristics, and the available network bandwidth between the primary and secondary sites. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in implementing a robust disaster recovery strategy for a critical VMware vSphere 8X environment. The challenge lies in balancing the stringent recovery point objective, RPO, and recovery time objective, RTO, requirements with the inherent complexities and potential costs of advanced data protection technologies. Achieving near-zero data loss and rapid recovery necessitates careful consideration of the underlying infrastructure, network bandwidth, storage capabilities, and the specific capabilities of the chosen replication and recovery solutions. Professional judgment is required to select a solution that not only meets the technical objectives, but also aligns with budgetary constraints and operational realities, ensuring business continuity without introducing undue risk or complexity. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of the existing vSphere 8X environment, including its architecture, resource utilization, and interdependencies. This assessment should then inform the selection of a disaster recovery solution that offers asynchronous replication with granular RPO settings, potentially leveraging technologies like vSphere replication or array-based replication, coupled with automated failover and failback orchestration. This approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the core requirements of minimizing data loss and downtime. It aligns with the principles of robust business continuity planning, which mandates proactive measures to safeguard critical data and services. By choosing a solution that offers proven reliability and scalability, and by thoroughly testing the recovery process, organizations can ensure compliance with internal policies and industry best practices for data resilience. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on traditional backup and restore methods for disaster recovery. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to meet the stringent RPO and RTO requirements of near-zero data loss and rapid recovery. Backups, by their nature, are point-in-time snapshots, and restoring from them can be a time-consuming process, often leading to significant data loss and extended downtime, thereby violating the fundamental principles of disaster recovery and potentially leading to regulatory noncompliance if specific data protection mandates are in place. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a complex, untested, and overly expensive disaster recovery solution without a thorough understanding of its operational overhead and integration challenges. This is professionally unsound, as it introduces significant risk of failure during a real disaster due to lack of proper testing and operational expertise. It also represents a potential misuse of resources, failing to achieve the desired balance between protection and cost-effectiveness, and could lead to operational disruptions if not managed correctly. A third incorrect approach would be to overlook the importance of network bandwidth and latency in the disaster recovery strategy. Implementing a replication solution without adequate network infrastructure will inevitably lead to missed RPOs and failed recovery attempts, rendering the entire disaster recovery plan ineffective. This demonstrates a failure to consider critical dependencies and a lack of holistic planning, which is a hallmark of unprofessional execution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define clear and measurable RPO and RTO requirements based on business impact analysis. 2. Conduct a thorough assessment of the current vSphere 8X environment and its limitations. 3. Research and evaluate potential disaster recovery solutions, considering their technical capabilities, scalability, cost, and operational complexity. 4. Prioritize solutions that offer proven reliability and align with the defined RPO/RTO. 5. Develop a detailed implementation plan including network, storage, and compute considerations. 6. Rigorously test the disaster recovery solution, including failover and failback scenarios, and document the results. 7. Establish ongoing monitoring and regular testing to ensure the solution remains effective. Question 5. When evaluating disaster recovery strategies for a critical multi-tier application suite in a VMware vSphere 8X environment, which approach best balances recovery point objectives, RPO, and recovery time objectives, RTO, while ensuring application consistency and minimizing operational complexity? Option A. Rely on manual backups of virtual machines and application data, with a documented procedure for restoring them to a secondary site during a disaster event. Option B. Implement vSphere replication with application-aware processing enabled for all tiers, coupled with VMware Site Recovery Manager for automated orchestration and testing of failover and failback procedures. Option C. Deploy a simplified disaster recovery solution using only vSphere replication with a longer RPO to reduce the licensing costs associated with advanced features. Option D. Utilize asynchronous storage-level replication for the underlying data stores, assuming that the application data will be consistent upon recovery due to the nature of the storage. The correct answer is B. Implement vSphere replication with application-aware processing enabled for all tiers, coupled with VMware Site Recovery Manager for automated orchestration and testing of failover and failback procedures. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design, ensuring robust disaster recovery (DR) capabilities while adhering to strict performance and availability requirements. The professional challenge lies in balancing the inherent trade-offs between RPO, recovery point objective, and RTO, recovery time objective, with the operational overhead and potential impact on production workloads. Careful judgment is required to select a DR strategy that meets business needs without introducing unacceptable risks or costs. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive assessment of business requirements, including RPO and RTO, and then aligns the chosen DR technology with those requirements. This involves understanding the capabilities and limitations of vSphere replication and Site Recovery Manager (SRM) in the context of the specific application workloads and their criticality. By performing thorough testing and validation, the design ensures that the DR solution is not only technically feasible, but also operationally sound and capable of meeting defined service level agreements, SLAs. This aligns with professional ethical obligations to deliver reliable and effective solutions that protect business continuity. An incorrect approach that relies solely on asynchronous replication without considering application consistency or testing the recovery process fails to meet professional standards. This could lead to data loss, violating RPO, or extended downtime violating RTO during a disaster, as the replicated data might be in an inconsistent state or the recovery procedure might be untested and prone to failure. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adequately assess risk, which can have significant financial and reputational consequences for the organization. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over guaranteed recovery objectives is also professionally unacceptable. While cost is a factor, it should not compromise the fundamental purpose of a DR solution, which is to ensure business continuity. Implementing a DR solution that is undersourced or uses inappropriate technology to save money, without a clear understanding of the potential impact on recovery times and data integrity, is a failure to act in the best interest of the organization. This can be seen as a breach of professional responsibility to provide a solution that effectively mitigates risk. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand business requirements. Clearly define RPO, RTO, application criticality, and compliance mandates. 2. Assess workload characteristics. Analyze the data change rates, interdependencies, and recovery needs of different applications. 3. Evaluate DR technologies. Understand the strengths and weaknesses of available vSphere DR solutions, e.g., vSphere replication, SRM, storage-based replication, in relation to the requirements. 4. Design and document. Create a detailed DR design, including recovery plans, runbooks, and testing procedures. 5. Test and validate. Conduct regular, realistic DR tests to verify that recovery objectives can be met. 6. Continuous improvement. Regularly review and update the DR strategy based on changes in the environment and business needs. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate that the planned implementation of VMware vSphere 8 X for critical application data requires careful consideration of data residency and access control regulations. Which approach best ensures compliance while enabling the advanced features of vSphere 8 X? Option A. Implement vSphere 8 X with default encryption settings and conduct a post-implementation audit to verify compliance with data residency requirements. Option B. Deploy vSphere 8 X using a hybrid configuration and defer detailed data residency and access control configurations until the next major infrastructure refresh cycle. Option C. Prioritize vSphere 8 X performance optimization and leverage its advanced data services, assuming that compliance will be addressed through general IT security policies. Option D. Design the vSphere 8 X cluster to align with specific data residency mandates. Configure granular access controls based on the principle of least privilege, and integrate with existing compliance monitoring tools for continuous validation. The correct answer is A. Implement vSphere 8 X with default encryption settings and conduct a post-implementation audit to verify compliance with data residency requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent complexity of implementing advanced vSphere features, specifically focusing on distributed storage solutions like vSAN within a regulated environment. The challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements for optimal performance and resilience with the stringent compliance mandates that govern data handling and security. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen implementation strategy not only meets the technical objectives, but also adheres to all applicable regulations, preventing potential data breaches, service disruptions, or audit failures. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, phased implementation that includes rigorous testing and validation against defined compliance benchmarks. This aligns with the principle of security by design and compliance by design, ensuring that regulatory requirements are integrated from the outset rather than being an afterthought. By conducting a comprehensive risk assessment and developing a detailed remediation plan. The organization demonstrates due diligence and a proactive stance towards regulatory adherence, minimizing the likelihood of noncompliance and its associated penalties. This methodical approach ensures that the vSphere cluster's configuration, including data encryption, access controls, and network segmentation, directly supports the organization's compliance obligations. An incorrect approach that bypasses or inadequately addresses the compliance validation phase is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a direct violation of regulatory mandates that often require demonstrable proof of compliance for data protection and security controls. Such an approach could lead to significant ethical failures, including negligence in protecting sensitive data and a disregard for established governance frameworks. Furthermore, it undermines the integrity of the IT infrastructure and the organization's ability to operate within legal boundaries. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on achieving the highest performance metrics without considering the implications for data sovereignty or data residency requirements would also be professionally unsound. This overlooks critical regulatory stipulations that dictate where and how data can be stored and processed, especially for sensitive or personal information. Failure to address these geographical and legal constraints can result in severe legal repercussions and reputational damage. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly identify all relevant regulatory frameworks and compliance obligations applicable to the data being managed. Second, conduct a thorough technical assessment of the proposed vSphere 8X advanced design, specifically evaluating how each component and configuration choice impacts compliance. Third, develop a phased implementation plan that incorporates specific compliance checkpoints and validation procedures at each stage. Fourth, engage with legal and compliance teams early and often to ensure alignment. Finally, maintain comprehensive documentation of all design decisions, implementation steps, and validation results to demonstrate adherence to regulatory requirements. Question 7. The monitoring system demonstrates unusual and intermittent network traffic patterns originating from a specific vSphere host, deviating from established baselines. This traffic is not immediately identifiable as a known legitimate service or application. Option A. Attempt to resolve the issue by restarting the vSphere host's management agents and clearing its system logs to reset its behavior. Option B. Initiate a detailed forensic investigation of the affected host and its network traffic, document all findings, and escalate to the Security Operations Center for further analysis and potential incident response. Option C. Immediately isolate the affected vSphere host from the network to prevent any potential spread of a suspected malicious activity without further investigation. Option D. Ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a transient network glitch or a false positive from the monitoring system, and continue with normal operations. The correct answer is B. Initiate a detailed forensic investigation of the affected host and its network traffic, document all findings, and escalate to the Security Operations Center for further analysis and potential incident response. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to data integrity and potential security vulnerabilities within a VMware vSphere 8X environment. The core dilemma lies in balancing the immediate need for operational stability with the ethical obligation to report and address a detected anomaly that could have broader implications. The monitoring system's demonstration of unusual network traffic patterns, while not immediately indicative of a breach, warrants careful investigation. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented investigation, adhering to established incident response procedures. This includes isolating the affected components, gathering forensic data without altering the evidence, and escalating the findings to the appropriate security and management teams. This aligns with best professional practices for IT security and data governance, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and a proactive stance against potential threats. The regulatory framework for IT operations, particularly concerning data protection and system integrity, mandates such diligence. Failure to investigate thoroughly could lead to undetected security breaches, data loss, or noncompliance with data privacy regulations. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the anomaly, assuming it is a transient issue or a false positive, without proper validation. This represents a significant ethical failure as it neglects a potential risk to the organization's data and systems. It also violates the professional duty to maintain system security and integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately assume a malicious attack and initiate drastic, unverified countermeasures without proper analysis. This could lead to unnecessary service disruptions, data corruption, and a misallocation of resources, while also potentially destroying valuable forensic evidence. A third incorrect approach would be to attempt to fix the issue by simply restarting services or clearing logs without understanding the root cause. This is ethically problematic as it masks the problem rather than resolving it, potentially allowing a more serious issue to fester undetected and violating the principle of accurate record keeping. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes risk assessment, evidence preservation, and adherence to established protocols. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting the observed anomaly. 2. Initiating a controlled investigation to gather information. 3. Consulting relevant policies and procedures for incident response. 4. Escalating findings to appropriate stakeholders based on the severity and nature of the anomaly. 5. Implementing corrective actions only after a thorough understanding of the root cause and potential impact. Question 8. The efficiency study reveals that a critical VMware vSphere 8X environment managed by a junior administrator is consistently underperforming compared to a similar environment managed by a senior architect. The senior architect has identified several configuration deviations from established best practices in the junior administrator's environment, which are impacting overall performance and resource utilization. What is the most appropriate course of action for the senior architect to address this situation? Option A. Silently reconfigure the junior administrator's environment to align with best practices without informing them, to ensure immediate performance improvement. Option B. Publicly address the junior administrator's performance issues during the next team meeting to highlight the importance of adhering to best practices. Option C. Schedule a series of one-on-one mentoring sessions with the junior administrator to review the identified configuration deviations, explain the impact on performance, and collaboratively implement corrective actions. Option D. Immediately report the performance issues and configuration deviations to management, requesting that the junior administrator be reassigned to less critical tasks. Correct answer is C. Schedule a series of one-on-one mentoring sessions with the junior administrator to review the identified configuration deviations, explain the impact on performance, and collaboratively implement corrective actions. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant performance discrepancy between two VMware vSphere 8X environments. One environment, managed by a senior architect with extensive experience, consistently outperforms the other, managed by a junior administrator who recently joined the team. The challenge lies in addressing this disparity without creating a hostile work environment or undermining the junior administrator's confidence, while still ensuring optimal infrastructure performance and adherence to best practices. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing technical excellence with interpersonal dynamics and ethical considerations. A purely technical solution might alienate the junior administrator, while an overly cautious approach could perpetuate performance issues and potentially violate organizational policies regarding infrastructure standards. The correct approach involves a structured, collaborative, and educational intervention. This means the senior architect should offer mentorship, knowledge sharing, and constructive feedback. This aligns with professional best practices by fostering a learning environment, promoting skill development, and ensuring that the infrastructure meets established performance benchmarks and security standards. It upholds ethical principles by treating all team members with respect and providing opportunities for growth, while prioritizing the integrity and efficiency of the IT systems. This approach directly addresses the performance gap through guidance rather than criticism, ensuring long-term improvement and team cohesion. An incorrect approach would be to immediately escalate the issue to management without attempting to mentor or guide the junior administrator. This fails to uphold the ethical responsibility of a senior team member to support and develop junior colleagues. It can create a perception of unfairness and demotivation, potentially leading to the junior administrator feeling undervalued and disengaged. Furthermore, it bypasses a crucial step in professional development and problem solving, which is direct communication and collaborative resolution. Another incorrect approach would be to implement changes in the junior administrator's environment without their knowledge or involvement, under the guise of fixing it. This is a significant ethical breach, violating principles of transparency and respect for colleagues' work. It undermines trust within the team and can lead to confusion and resentment. From a technical standpoint, it prevents the junior administrator from learning from their mistakes and understanding the rationale behind the changes, hindering their professional growth and the overall team's capability. Third incorrect approach would be to publicly criticize the junior administrator's performance during a team meeting. This is unprofessional and unethical, creating a negative and potentially toxic work environment. It can severely damage the junior administrator's morale and confidence, making them less effective and more prone to errors. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a commitment to open communication, constructive feedback delivered privately, and a focus on collaborative problem-solving and skill development, always prioritizing the well-being of the team and the integrity of the systems. Question 9. System analysis indicates that a VMware vSphere 8X advanced design architect, while presenting at an industry conference, is asked by a peer to share specific performance metrics and configuration details from a recent, highly successful client implementation. The architect knows that this client's environment is a significant competitive differentiator for them. No explicit consent has been given to share any details about this specific project. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the architect? Option A. Advise the peer that similar performance levels can likely be achieved by their organization, based on the architect's understanding of the client's successful implementation. Option B. Politely decline to share any specific details, citing client confidentiality agreements and the need for explicit written consent before disclosing any information related to a client's environment. Option C. Share anonymized performance metrics and general configuration principles, explaining that specific client identifiers have been removed. Option D. Provide the requested information, framing it as an example of industry best practices that can be achieved with vSphere 8X. The correct answer is B. Politely decline to share any specific details, citing client confidentiality agreements and the need for explicit written consent before disclosing any information related to a client's environment. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain client confidentiality and data integrity within the context of VMware vSphere 8X advanced design. The architect is privy to sensitive performance data that, if disclosed without authorization, could have significant competitive implications for the client. The dilemma arises from a request that, while seemingly innocuous and potentially beneficial for a broader industry understanding, directly conflicts with the contractual and ethical duty owed to the client. Careful judgment is required to balance the desire for knowledge sharing with the paramount importance of client trust and data security. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the client's confidentiality agreement and VMware's professional conduct guidelines. This means refusing to share any specific performance metrics or configurations without explicit, written consent from the client. This upholds the architect's fiduciary duty to the client, ensuring that proprietary information remains protected. It also aligns with the ethical principles of professional responsibility, which prioritize client interests and data privacy. By seeking explicit consent, the architect demonstrates integrity and a commitment to ethical practice, reinforcing the client's trust and the professional reputation. Incorrect approaches analysis. Sharing anonymized data without explicit consent is an ethical failure because anonymization is not always foolproof, and even aggregated or seemingly anonymized data can sometimes be reverse-engineered or, in aggregate, reveal patterns that could be detrimental to the client's competitive position. This violates the spirit, if not the letter, of confidentiality agreements. Providing the requested information under the guise of industry best practices without client consent is a direct breach of confidentiality. The architect's obligation is to the client's specific environment, not to generalize sensitive details for external consumption without authorization. This misrepresents the architect's role and prioritizes external perception over contractual and ethical duties. Suggesting the client's competitor could achieve similar results based on the architect's knowledge of the client's environment, even without directly sharing data, is also an ethical lapse. This implies an unauthorized disclosure of insights derived from confidential client information, potentially aiding a competitor and undermining the client's competitive advantage. Professional reasoning. Professionals in advanced design roles must operate with a clear understanding of their ethical and contractual obligations. When faced with requests that could compromise client confidentiality, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the core ethical principles at play: confidentiality, integrity, client advocacy. 2. Reviewing contractual agreements and non-disclosure policies. 3. Assessing the potential impact of disclosure on the client's business. 4. Prioritizing client interest above all else. 5. Seeking explicit, written consent for any information sharing that might touch upon confidential data. 6. If consent cannot be obtained, politely but firmly declining the request, explaining the professional constraints. 7. Documenting the request and the response for professional record keeping. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new automated patching solution for vSphere 8X environments could significantly reduce manual effort and potential human error. However, the proposed solution requires deep integration with the existing vCenter server and SC hosts, potentially impacting performance and security if not configured correctly. Which approach best balances the benefits of process optimization with the need for operational stability and security? Option A. Conduct a thorough proof of concept in a lab environment, followed by a phased pilot deployment in a non-critical production segment, with continuous monitoring and rollback plans in place before a full production rollout. Option B. Implement the automated patching solution only in development and test environments, as the risk to production systems is too high, accepting the continued manual patching effort in production. Option C. Deploy the automated patching solution across all production environments immediately to realize the cost savings and efficiency gains as quickly as possible, relying on vendor documentation for configuration. Option D. Integrate the automated patching solution directly into the vCenter server appliance's core services to ensure maximum efficiency and minimal latency during patching operations. The correct answer is C. Deploy the automated patching solution across all production environments immediately to realize the cost savings and efficiency gains as quickly as possible, relying on vendor documentation for configuration. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in advanced vSphere design, balancing the drive for process optimization with the inherent complexities and potential risks of implementing new technologies or methodologies. The professional challenge lies in accurately assessing the true benefits of a proposed optimization, considering not just immediate gains, but also long-term operational stability, security posture, and compliance with VMware's best practices and recommended architectures. A hasty or incomplete analysis can lead to suboptimal outcomes, increased technical debt, or even security vulnerabilities, all of which have significant implications for the organization's IT operation and business continuity. The correct approach, which focuses on a phased, evidence-based implementation of process optimization, represents best professional practice because it aligns with a risk-aware and iterative methodology. This approach prioritizes thorough validation and testing in a controlled environment before broad deployment. It ensures that the optimization genuinely improves efficiency without introducing unforeseen issues. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT management, emphasizing stability and reliability, which are paramount in enterprise environments. Furthermore, by documenting and measuring outcomes, it provides a clear justification for the investment and allows for continuous improvement, a hallmark of mature IT processes. Incorrect approaches fail to uphold professional standards due to several potential regulatory and ethical failures. One incorrect approach might involve a big bang implementation of a new automation framework without adequate testing. This could lead to widespread service disruption, violating the ethical obligation to maintain service availability and potentially breaching service-level agreements, SLAs, which are often governed by contractual and regulatory frameworks. Another incorrect approach could be to bypass established change management procedures in the name of speed. This is a direct violation of IT governance principles and can lead to audit failures and non-compliance with internal policies and potentially external regulations concerning data integrity and system security. A third incorrect approach might be to adopt a solution based solely on vendor marketing, without independent verification of its compatibility and security implications within the existing vSphere environment. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and could expose the organization to security risks, failing the ethical duty to protect organizational assets and data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define clear objectives. What specific process is being optimized and what are the measurable goals? 2. Risk assessment. Identify potential risks associated with the proposed optimization, including operational, security, and compliance risks. 3. Proof of concept post-C and pilot testing. Implement the optimization in a controlled, non-production environment to validate its effectiveness and identify any issues. 4. Phased rollout. Deploy the optimization incrementally, monitoring performance and stability at each stage. 5. Documentation and measurement. Thoroughly document the implementation process and continuously measure the impact against the defined objectives. 6. Stakeholder communication. Keep relevant stakeholders informed throughout the process. Question 11. Compliance review shows that the proposed vSphere 8X environment designed for financial services organization must meet stringent availability requirements while adhering to strict network segmentation policies mandated by financial regulations. The design team is considering how to implement vSphere High Availability (HA) and Distributed Resource Scheduler (DRS) to ensure optimal resource utilization and resilience. What approach best balances these competing requirements? Option A. Implement vSphere HA and DRS with default network configurations, relying solely on the physical network firewall for security and assuming all internal VM traffic is trusted. Option B. Implement vSphere HA and DRS with broad network access for all virtual machines to ensure seamless failover and resource balancing, and address security concerns post-deployment. Option C. Disable vSphere HA and DRS to simplify network security configuration and avoid potential conflicts with existing firewall rules. Option D. Implement vSphere HA and DRS, leveraging NSXT data center for microsegmentation and integrating security groups to enforce granular network access controls for virtual machines. The correct answer is D. Implement vSphere HA and DRS, leveraging NSXT data center for microsegmentation and integrating security groups to enforce granular network access controls for virtual machines. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in advanced vSphere design, where the need for high availability and disaster recovery must be balanced against the complexities of network segmentation and security policies. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen vSphere HA and DRS configurations do not inadvertently create security vulnerabilities or violate established network security postures, especially in a regulated environment. The professional must navigate the technical intricacies of vSphere while remaining acutely aware of the potential compliance implications. Correct approach analysis. Implementing vSphere HA and DRS with a focus on network segmentation and security group integration represents best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the core requirement of maintaining high availability and optimal resource utilization without compromising security. By leveraging NSXT data centers' microsegmentation capabilities, the design ensures that VM traffic is inspected and controlled at a granular level, aligning with security best practices and potentially meeting regulatory requirements for network isolation and access control. This proactive integration of security into the HA/DRS design demonstrates a mature understanding of modern infrastructure security principles. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that prioritizes vSphere HA and DRS functionality without considering network segmentation and security group integration would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of holistic design thinking, potentially leading to a less secure environment. If the environment is subject to regulations requiring network segmentation, e.g., PCI DSS HIPAA, this oversight could lead to direct compliance violations, exposing sensitive data and incurring significant penalties. Another incorrect approach would be to disable vSphere HA or DRS to simplify network security configuration. This is a failure of professional judgment, as it sacrifices critical availability and performance features for a perceived security gain, which is often achievable through proper integration. This approach demonstrates a misunderstanding of the trade-offs and a lack of skill in designing secure, resilient systems. It also fails to meet the fundamental requirements of a robust vSphere deployment. Finally, implementing HA and DRS without any consideration for network traffic patterns and potential security implications, relying solely on perimeter security, is also professionally unsound. This approach ignores the reality of internal threats and lateral movement, which are significant concerns in many regulatory frameworks. It creates a false sense of security and leaves the environment vulnerable to breaches that bypass external defenses. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a defense-in-depth strategy when designing vSphere environments, especially concerning HA and DRS. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape and integrating security controls at multiple layers. The decision-making process should begin with a thorough understanding of the business requirements for availability and performance, followed by an assessment of the security and compliance mandates. The design should then iteratively incorporate solutions that meet both sets of requirements, prioritizing integrated security features over workarounds or feature disabling. This ensures a robust, secure, and compliant infrastructure. Question 12. Process analysis reveals that the current manual provisioning of virtual machines for new tenants in a VMware vSphere 8X environment is time-consuming and prone to human error, impacting deployment timelines and increasing operational overhead. Considering the regulatory framework for this jurisdiction, which approach best optimizes this process while maintaining security and compliance? Option A. Immediately deploy a fully automated, self-service portal for all tenants to provision VMs, without prior extensive testing or validation of the underlying automation scripts and security configurations. Option B. Develop and implement automated workflows for VM provisioning, starting with a pilot group of non-critical tenants, followed by a phased rollout to all tenants after thorough testing and validation of security controls and tenant isolation mechanisms. Option C. Continue with manual VM provisioning for all tenants to ensure maximum control and prevent any potential automation-related errors or security vulnerabilities. Option D. Implement automation for VM provisioning, but disable all tenant-specific security policies and isolation features to simplify the automation process and reduce deployment time. The correct answer is B. Develop and implement automated workflows for VM provisioning, starting with a pilot group of non-critical tenants, followed by a phased rollout to all tenants after thorough testing and validation of security controls and tenant isolation mechanisms. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design, optimizing operational processes within a complex multi-tenant environment. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficiency and automation with the stringent requirements for security, compliance, and tenant isolation, all while adhering to the specific regulatory framework governing the exam's jurisdiction. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process improvements do not inadvertently introduce vulnerabilities or violate established policies. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, risk-aware implementation of automation. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology adoption, emphasizing thorough testing, validation, and staged rollout. By integrating automation into existing workflows in a controlled manner, it minimizes disruption and allows for continuous monitoring and adjustment. This approach is ethically sound as it protects the integrity of the environment and the data within it, and it is compliant with regulatory frameworks that often mandate change control and risk assessment before significant operational modifications. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid, unvalidated automation deployment would be professionally unacceptable. This would represent a failure to adhere to change management protocols, a common regulatory requirement designed to prevent unintended consequences. Such an approach could lead to system instability, data corruption, or security breaches, all of which carry significant ethical and regulatory ramifications, including potential fines and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves manual intervention for all routine tasks despite the availability of automation, would be professionally inefficient and potentially detrimental to service delivery. While it might appear to mitigate risk, it fails to leverage available tools for optimization, leading to increased operational costs and slower response times. This can indirectly impact compliance if service level agreements, SLAs, are not met due to manual bottlenecks. A third incorrect approach, implementing automation without considering tenant isolation, would be a severe regulatory and ethical failure. In a multi-tenant environment, maintaining strict boundaries between tenants is paramount for data privacy and security. Any automation that blurs these lines or allows for cross-tenant access would violate fundamental principles of data protection and likely contravene specific regulations governing data handling and access control. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment, a clear understanding of the existing operational processes, and a thorough evaluation of potential automation solutions against defined objectives and constraints. This includes identifying key performance indicators, KPI for process optimization, assessing the impact of proposed changes on security and compliance, and developing a robust testing and rollback strategy. Professionals must always prioritize the integrity and security of the environment and its data, ensuring that any process optimization efforts are conducted in a responsible and compliant manner. Question 13. Operational review demonstrates that several critical virtual machines are experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user productivity. The infrastructure team has identified potential bottlenecks in storage, I/O, and network latency, but the exact root cause remains elusive due to the complexity of the vSphere 8X environment and its interconnected services. The team is under pressure to resolve these issues quickly. What is the most professional and effective approach to address this situation and optimize the underlying processes? Option A. Immediately escalate the issue to the vendor for a complete overhaul of the vSphere environment, assuming the problem is a fundamental flaw in the VMware software. Option B. Implement a series of rapid, isolated configuration changes to the storage and network components based on educated guesses and anecdotal evidence from similar past incidents, prioritizing immediate symptom relief. Option C. Initiate a comprehensive root cause analysis by collecting detailed performance metrics from the affected VMs, hosts, and storage arrays, correlating this data with network traffic patterns, and then evaluating multiple potential solutions based on their long-term impact on performance, scalability, and security before implementing the most suitable one. Option D. Focus solely on increasing the resources allocated to the affected virtual machines, e.g., more CPU, RAM, as a quick fix, without investigating the underlying infrastructure or process issues. Correct answer is B. Implement a series of rapid, isolated configuration changes to the storage and network components based on educated guesses and anecdotal evidence from similar past incidents, prioritizing immediate symptom relief. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between immediate operational demands and long-term strategic optimization within a complex VMware vSphere 8X environment. The challenge lies in balancing the need for rapid issue resolution with the imperative to implement sustainable, efficient processes that align with best practices and potential regulatory considerations, even if not explicitly stated in the exam's jurisdiction. Careful judgment is required to avoid short-sighted fixes that could lead to technical debt or future compliance issues. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven methodology for process optimization. By conducting a thorough root cause analysis and evaluating multiple potential solutions against defined criteria, performance, scalability, security, cost, it ensures that the chosen solution is not only effective in addressing the immediate issue, but also contributes to the overall health and efficiency of the vSphere environment. This aligns with the professional responsibility to maintain a robust and reliable infrastructure, minimizing risk and maximizing value. While the exam jurisdiction may not have explicit regulations for vSphere optimization, the underlying principle of due diligence and responsible system management is universally applicable in professional IT practice. Each incorrect approach carries specific regulatory or ethical failures in a professional IT context. Implementing a solution without a comprehensive understanding of its impact on other system components, or without considering scalability, risks a breach of professional duty to maintain system integrity. This could lead to unforeseen performance degradation or security vulnerabilities, potentially violating implicit service level agreements or organizational policies. Similarly, Prioritizing cost savings over performance or security without a proper risk assessment demonstrates a failure to exercise due diligence and could result in a system that is not fit for purpose, potentially leading to operational disruptions or data breaches. Relying solely on anecdotal evidence or vendor recommendations without independent validation is a failure to apply critical thinking and can lead to suboptimal or even detrimental solutions. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem and its impact. Second, gather relevant data and perform a thorough analysis to identify root causes. Third, brainstorm and evaluate potential solutions, considering their technical feasibility, operational impact, security implications, and long-term sustainability. Fourth, select the most appropriate solution based on a balanced assessment of these factors. Finally, implement the solution with appropriate testing and monitoring, and document the process and outcomes. This systematic approach ensures informed decision-making and upholds professional standards. Question 14. Stakeholder feedback indicates that while the vSphere environment's resource utilization metrics appear healthy according to standard monitoring tools, key business applications are experiencing intermittent slowdowns that are impacting user productivity and customer satisfaction. The vSphere design team has proposed several advanced optimization techniques, but there is a lack of consensus on which to prioritize. What is the most effective approach to address this discrepancy and ensure that optimization efforts deliver tangible business value? Option A. Prioritize optimizations based on the technical complexity and novelty of the techniques, aiming to showcase advanced VMware vSphere 8X capabilities and potentially gain industry recognition for innovative design. Option B. Deploy a new, cutting-edge vSphere performance monitoring solution that offers more granular data points, assuming that the current tools are insufficient to capture the root cause of the perceived performance issues. Option C. Initiate a series of targeted workshops with key business stakeholders and application owners to collaboratively define acceptable performance thresholds for critical business functions and identify the specific business impact of current slowdowns before proposing technical solutions. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of vSphere performance metrics, focusing on CPU ready time, memory ballooning, and disk latency, and implement the most aggressive optimizations identified for each metric to proactively improve overall system health. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of vSphere performance metrics, focusing on CPU ready time, memory ballooning, and disk latency, and implement the most aggressive optimizations identified for each metric to proactively improve overall system health. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design where performance optimization efforts, while technically sound, fail to align with business objectives and user experience. The professional challenge lies in balancing technical efficiency with tangible business value and stakeholder satisfaction. A successful vSphere architect must not only understand the technical intricacies of performance tuning, but also translate those into measurable improvements that resonate with business stakeholders. This requires proactive communication, clear articulation of benefits, and a deep understanding of the business impact of technical decisions. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes understanding the root cause of performance issues from a business perspective before implementing technical solutions. By engaging with stakeholders to define acceptable performance metrics and understand the business impact of current limitations, the architect ensures that optimization efforts are targeted, relevant, and demonstrably beneficial. This aligns with the principle of delivering value and meeting business requirements, which is a core tenet of professional IT service delivery. It also fosters trust and collaboration between IT and business units. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on granular technical metrics without understanding their business context is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to wasted resources on optimizations that do not address the actual business pain points or deliver perceived value. It demonstrates a failure to grasp the broader organizational objectives and can result in stakeholder dissatisfaction, even if the technical metrics show improvement. This approach risks alienating stakeholders and undermining the IT department's credibility. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing broad, unvalidated optimization strategies without specific stakeholder input or defined success criteria is also professionally flawed. This shotgun approach is inefficient and can introduce unintended consequences or instability into the vSphere environment. It lacks the rigor of a data-driven, business-aligned design process and can be seen as technically competent but strategically inept. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the business context. Always begin by understanding the business goals, user workflows, and the impact of performance on these. 2. Identify business-critical metrics. Work with stakeholders to define what good performance means in business terms, not just technical terms. 3. Data-driven analysis. Collect relevant performance data, but interpret it through the lens of business impact. 4. Targeted solutions. Design and implement optimization strategies that directly address the identified business-critical performance issues. 5. Validation and communication. Continuously validate the effectiveness of optimizations against business metrics and communicate progress and outcomes clearly to stakeholders. Question 15. The efficiency study reveals that virtual machine storage I/O operations are experiencing significant latency, impacting application responsiveness. The current vSphere 8X environment utilizes standard data stores and has storage I/O control enabled. What is the most effective approach to diagnose and resolve this storage I/O bottleneck, focusing on process optimization within the existing infrastructure? Option A. Disable storage I/O control to eliminate any potential overhead it might be introducing to the I/O path. Option B. Analyze storage I/O control statistics and data store performance metrics to identify VMs or data stores with high I/O contention, and then adjust SIOC shares or limits accordingly, potentially exploring data store cluster configurations for better I/O distribution. Option C. Immediately initiate a project to upgrade all physical storage arrays to higher performance models. Option D. Increase the IOPS limits for all virtual machines across the environment to ensure they have ample I/O resources available. The correct answer is B. Analyze storage I/O control statistics and data store performance metrics to identify VMs or data stores with high I/O contention, and then adjust SIOC shares or limits accordingly, potentially exploring data store cluster configurations for better I/O distribution. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the vSphere 8X environment, specifically related to the performance of virtual machine storage I/O operations. This scenario is professionally challenging because optimizing storage performance directly impacts application responsiveness, user experience, and overall data center operational costs. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the bottleneck without introducing new performance issues or compromising data integrity, all while adhering to the principles of process optimization and the specific VMware vSphere 8X advanced design guidelines. Careful judgment is required to balance performance gains with stability and resource utilization. The correct approach, focusing on analyzing storage I/O control mechanisms and advanced storage provisioning techniques within vSphere 8X, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the exam's emphasis on advanced design and optimization. By examining features like storage I/O control SIOC, distributed resource scheduler DRS, storage affinity rules, and the proper configuration of data store clusters, a designer can systematically identify and address the I/O bottleneck. This method is best professional practice because it leverages the native capabilities of vSphere 8X to fine-tune performance at a granular level, ensuring that critical workloads receive the necessary I/O resources without over-provisioning or impacting less critical VMs. This proactive and data-driven approach minimizes risk and maximizes efficiency, adhering to the implicit ethical obligation to provide a stable and performant infrastructure. An incorrect approach that involves indiscriminately increasing the IOPS limits for all virtual machines without a thorough analysis is professionally unacceptable. This would violate the principle of targeted optimization and could lead to resource contention, potentially degrading performance for other VMs and increasing storage infrastructure costs unnecessarily. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the underlying I/O patterns and the impact of such broad changes. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling storage I/O control entirely to remove any potential overhead, is also professionally unsound. It might seem like a simplification. SIOC is a critical feature for managing I/O contention, and ensuring fair resource allocation. Disabling it without understanding its role or the specific workload characteristics would be a failure to apply best practices for resource management and could lead to unpredictable performance degradation for sensitive applications. A further incorrect approach, focusing solely on upgrading the physical storage hardware without a detailed analysis of the virtualized environment's I/O patterns, represents a costly and potentially ineffective solution. While hardware upgrades can improve performance, they do not address underlying configuration issues or inefficient utilization of existing resources. This approach fails to follow a systematic process optimization methodology and could be a misallocation of resources if the bottleneck is software or configuration related. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Define the problem clearly based on observed symptoms and efficiency study findings. 2. Gather detailed performance metrics related to the identified bottleneck, e.g., latency, IOPS, throughput, queue depths. 3. Analyze the vSphere 8. X configuration, including storage policies, SIOC settings, data store configuration, and VM level I/O settings. 4. Formulate hypotheses about the root cause S of the bottleneck. 5. Develop targeted solutions based on the hypotheses, prioritizing native vSphere features and advanced design principles. 6. Implement solutions in a controlled manner, ideally in a non-production environment or during a maintenance window. 7. Monitor performance rigorously after implementation to validate the effectiveness of the changes and identify any unintended consequences. 8. Document all changes and their impact. Question 16. Quality control measures reveal that the current virtual machine deployment and patching processes within the VMware vSphere 8 X environment are time-consuming and prone to manual errors, impacting overall operational efficiency. The IT operations team is proposing several strategies to address this, which approach best balances the need for process optimization with the imperative to maintain security and compliance. Option A. Focus solely on reducing the time taken for manual patching by skipping some non-critical security updates to meet faster deployment targets. Option B. Introduce a new manual review step for every automated provisioning and patching task, requiring sign-off from multiple stakeholders to ensure accuracy and adherence to policies. Option C. Deploy a new, unproven automation tool for VM deployment and patching without extensive testing, assuming it will inherently improve efficiency and security. Option D. Implement a comprehensive automation solution for VM provisioning and patching, incorporating automated testing and validation against predefined security baselines and compliance checks before deployment. The correct answer is D. Implement a comprehensive automation solution for VM provisioning and patching, incorporating automated testing and validation against predefined security baselines and compliance checks before deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between optimizing operational efficiency and maintaining robust security and compliance within a virtualized environment. The need to streamline processes, such as VM provisioning and patching, must be balanced against the potential for introducing vulnerabilities or deviating from established security baselines. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization efforts do not inadvertently compromise the integrity or security posture of the vSphere environment, which could lead to regulatory noncompliance and operational risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-aware methodology for process optimization. By focusing on automation and standardization through tools like vRealize Automation or Ansible, and integrating these with robust testing and validation, it ensures that optimized processes are both efficient and secure. This aligns with the principle of security by design and proactive compliance, minimizing the likelihood of introducing new risks or violating established security policies and regulatory requirements. The emphasis on continuous monitoring and feedback loops further reinforces this best practice by enabling rapid identification and remediation of any deviations or emergent issues. Each incorrect approach carries specific regulatory or ethical failures. Implementing automation without thorough testing and validation risks introducing errors or vulnerabilities into the production environment. This could lead to a breach of data confidentiality, integrity, or availability, directly violating principles of data protection regulations and internal security policies. Automating processes without considering the impact on existing security controls or compliance frameworks can lead to inadvertent noncompliance, exposing the organization to penalties and reputational damage. Furthermore, relying solely on manual review for critical automated processes creates a bottleneck and increases the risk of human error, undermining the very efficiency gains sought and potentially leading to inconsistent application of security policies. Ignoring the feedback loop from monitoring systems means that potential issues are not addressed promptly, allowing problems to escalate and increasing the likelihood of significant security incidents or compliance failures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the existing environment, including current processes, security controls, and regulatory obligations. For implementing any optimization, a risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential impacts on security and compliance. The chosen optimization strategy should then be evaluated against this risk assessment, prioritizing solutions that offer efficiency gains while demonstrably maintaining or improving the security and compliance posture. A phased implementation approach, coupled with comprehensive testing, validation, and continuous monitoring, is crucial. Finally, regular reviews and audits should be performed to ensure ongoing adherence to both internal policies and external regulations. Question 17. Governance review demonstrates that the proposed VMware vSphere 8X advanced storage design, leveraging new NVMe over Fabrics, NVMe-OF technology for enhanced application performance, has not been explicitly evaluated against the organization's current data security and compliance policies, which predate the widespread adoption of such advanced storage protocols. The application owners are eager for the performance gains, but the security and compliance teams have raised concerns about potential unaddressed vulnerabilities and data integrity risks. What is the most appropriate course of action for the vSphere architect? Option A. Implement the NVMe-OF storage solution with minimal configuration changes, assuming that the underlying vSphere 8X security features are sufficient to meet all existing governance requirements without further explicit validation. Option B. Proceed with the implementation of the NVMe-OF storage solution, documenting the design as compliant with existing general security principles and planning to address any specific policy gaps in a future, less critical, update cycle. Option C. Halt the implementation and initiate a formal review process to assess the NVMe-OF storage design against current data security and compliance policies, engaging with security and compliance stakeholders to identify any necessary policy updates or specific security controls required for this new technology. Option D. Advise the application owners to deploy their high-performance workloads on a separate, less regulated infrastructure segment until the organization's governance framework can be updated to accommodate NVMe-OF technology. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the implementation of the NVMe-OF storage solution, documenting the design as compliant with existing general security principles and planning to address any specific policy gaps in a future, less critical, update cycle. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design, balancing the technical requirements of a new, high-performance storage solution with the existing governance and security policies of the organization. The challenge lies in ensuring that the proposed design, while technically superior, does not inadvertently introduce compliance risks or violate established security baselines. The stakeholder perspective is critical here, as the design must not only meet the needs of the application owners, but also satisfy the concerns of security, compliance, and operations teams. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough review and potential update of existing governance frameworks before implementation. This aligns with best professional practice by ensuring that any new technology or design adheres to the organization's established risk appetite, security posture, and regulatory obligations. Specifically, it demonstrates a commitment to proactive risk management and a structured approach to change control, which are fundamental to maintaining a secure and compliant IT environment. This proactive stance prevents the introduction of shadow IT or unapproved configurations that could lead to security breaches or audit failures. An incorrect approach that bypasses or ignores existing governance frameworks is professionally unacceptable. This could manifest as proceeding with the implementation without proper security validation or without obtaining necessary approvals. Such actions represent a direct failure to adhere to organizational policies and potentially regulatory requirements related to data security and system integrity. This creates significant audit risks, as the implemented solution would not have undergone the required due diligence. Furthermore, it undermines the authority of governance bodies and can lead to a fragmented and insecure IT infrastructure. Another incorrect approach might involve making superficial changes to documentation to retroactively fit the new design into old policies, which is a form of misrepresentation and a failure of professional integrity. This approach fails to address the underlying compliance gaps and can lead to a false sense of security. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the existing governance and compliance landscape. This involves engaging with relevant stakeholders, including security, compliance, and legal teams, early in the design process. The framework should then involve a gap analysis between the proposed design and current policies, followed by a risk assessment. Based on this assessment, a decision can be made to either adapt the design to fit existing policies, seek formal exceptions or policy updates, or, if the risks are too high, reconsider the design. This iterative process ensures that technical innovation is balanced with robust governance and compliance. Question 18. The evaluation methodology shows that a financial services organization is designing a new vSphere 8X environment and must select a storage solution that ensures data resilience and compliance with stringent financial regulations regarding data availability and recovery. The primary concern is to minimize data loss and downtime in the event of a disaster. Which storage solution approach best addresses these requirements while adhering to the principles of advanced vSphere design and regulatory compliance? Option A. Deploy a storage solution that offers asynchronous replication, relying on manual intervention for failover to a secondary site, with the understanding that some data loss may occur. Option B. Implement a storage solution that utilizes synchronous replication between two geographically dispersed data centers, coupled with vSphere Site Recovery Manager for automated failover and failback, ensuring near-zero RPO and RTO. Option C. Choose a storage solution that leverages snapshotting technology for backups, with a recovery process that involves restoring from these snapshots to a different location. Option D. Select a storage solution that provides high availability within a single data center, without a separate disaster recovery site, focusing on minimizing local hardware failures. Correct answer is B. Implement a storage solution that utilizes synchronous replication between two geographically dispersed data centers, coupled with vSphere Site Recovery Manager for automated failover and failback, ensuring near-zero RPO and RTO. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows a critical juncture in the design of a vSphere 8X environment where the chosen storage solution directly impacts data availability and disaster recovery capabilities. This scenario is professionally challenging because the decision maker must balance technical feasibility, cost, and stringent regulatory compliance requirements for data resilience. The pressure to deliver a cost-effective solution without compromising on the ability to recover from catastrophic failures, especially in a regulated industry, necessitates a deep understanding of both VMware's advanced features and the applicable regulatory landscape. The correct approach, which prioritizes a solution that meets RPO and RTO objectives through synchronous replication with automated failover and failback capabilities, represents best professional practice. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that mandate robust business continuity and disaster recovery plans, ensuring minimal data loss and rapid service restoration. Such a design demonstrates due diligence in protecting critical assets and maintaining operational integrity, thereby satisfying compliance obligations and stakeholder trust. An incorrect approach that relies solely on asynchronous replication for disaster recovery, without explicit validation of RPO/RTO compliance under various failure scenarios, fails to meet the rigor expected in regulated environments. This could lead to unacceptable data loss and extended downtime, violating regulatory mandates for data protection and availability. Another incorrect approach, which proposes a manual failover process to reduce initial costs, introduces significant risk of human error and delays in recovery, directly contravening the need for timely restoration of services as often stipulated by regulatory bodies. A third incorrect approach, focusing only on local high availability without a geographically dispersed disaster recovery strategy, leaves the organization vulnerable to site-wide disasters, a clear deficiency in comprehensive disaster recovery planning required by many regulations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of business requirements and regulatory mandates. This involves identifying critical applications and their associated RPO/RTO targets. Subsequently, a comprehensive assessment of available technologies and their capabilities against these requirements is crucial. The evaluation must include a risk assessment of each proposed solution, considering potential failure modes and their impact. Finally, the chosen solution must be documented with clear justification, demonstrating how it meets all technical, business, and regulatory objectives. Question 19. The evaluation methodology shows a need to optimize resource utilization and improve the responsiveness of critical business applications by increasing the automation level of vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler, DRS. Given the diverse nature of the production workloads and the potential for performance degradation if not managed carefully, which implementation strategy best balances efficiency gains with risk mitigation? Option A. Disable DRS for all critical clusters to prevent any automated interference with application performance, relying solely on manual adjustments. Option B. Revert to manual resource management for all clusters to ensure complete control over workload placement and avoid any potential automated misconfigurations. Option C. Immediately increase the DRS automation level across all production clusters to maximize immediate efficiency gains and observe the system's behavior in real time. Option D. Implement a phased approach, starting with a pilot group of non-critical clusters, thoroughly testing the increased automation level and closely monitoring performance metrics before a broader rollout to production environments. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased approach, starting with a pilot group of non-critical clusters, thoroughly testing the increased automation level and closely monitoring performance metrics before a broader rollout to production environments. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows a scenario where a critical vSphere 8X component, specifically related to vSphere Distributed Resource Scheduler, DRS automation levels, and their impact on workload placement and resource utilization, needs to be adjusted. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for increased automation and efficiency with the potential for unintended consequences on application performance and user experience, especially in a production environment with diverse and critical workloads. This requires a deep understanding of DRS behavior, application dependencies, and the organization's risk tolerance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, controlled, and data-driven implementation. This involves thorough pre-implementation testing in a non-production environment that closely mirrors production, followed by a staged rollout with continuous monitoring and rollback capabilities. This methodology aligns with general IT best practices for change management and risk mitigation, ensuring that any adverse effects are identified and contained before impacting critical services. It demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to service stability, which are fundamental ethical considerations in IT operations. An incorrect approach that involves immediately increasing the DRS automation level across all clusters without prior testing or monitoring fails to adhere to responsible change management principles. This could lead to unexpected workload migrations that negatively impact application performance, potentially causing service disruptions. Ethically, this demonstrates a disregard for the potential harm to business operations and user productivity. Another incorrect approach, which is to revert to manual resource management for all clusters, abandons the benefits of advanced automation that the organization is seeking to leverage. While it mitigates the risk of automated misplacement, it sacrifices efficiency and scalability, which are key objectives of adopting advanced vSphere features. This approach fails to meet the underlying business need for improved resource utilization and operational agility, representing a failure in professional problem solving. A further incorrect approach, such as disabling DRS entirely for critical clusters, is an extreme measure that negates the purpose of implementing DRS. While it prevents automated interference, it leaves resource management to manual intervention, which is prone to human error and inefficiency, especially at scale. This approach is a reactive, rather than proactive, solution and fails to address the core requirement of optimizing resource allocation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the business objective. Clearly define why the change is being considered and what benefits are expected. 2. Assess the risk. Identify potential negative impacts on applications, services, and users. 3. Design and test. Develop a detailed implementation plan, including testing in a representative environment. 4. Phased rollout. Implement changes incrementally, starting with less critical systems. 5. Monitor and validate. Continuously observe system performance and validate that objectives are being met. 6. Rollback plan. Have a clear and tested procedure to revert to the previous state if issues arise. 7. Documentation and communication. Maintain thorough records and communicate changes to stakeholders. Question 20. Comparative studies suggest that in highly regulated environments, the primary driver for advanced VMware vSphere 8 X design decisions should be a comprehensive understanding and direct mapping of specific regulatory mandates to technical controls. When designing a new vSphere 8 X environment for a financial services organization subject to stringent data protection and privacy regulations, which of the following design approaches best aligns with this principle and ensures robust compliance? Option A. Implement a broad set of security controls based on general industry security frameworks, such as ISO 27001, without specific verification against the financial services regulations, to achieve a high level of security posture. Option B. Focus on deploying a highly resilient and fault-tolerant infrastructure using advanced clustering and disaster recovery technologies to guarantee business continuity, with security being a secondary consideration addressed through general IT security policies. Option C. Prioritize implementing the latest performance-enhancing features and advanced networking configurations to ensure maximum transaction throughput and low latency, assuming that standard security best practices will inherently satisfy regulatory requirements. Option D. Conduct a detailed analysis of the applicable financial services regulations and data privacy laws, then design vSphere 8 X security policies, network segmentation, encryption strategies, and access controls to directly address each identified regulatory control requirement, documenting the mapping explicitly. The correct answer is C. Prioritize implementing the latest performance-enhancing features and advanced networking configurations to ensure maximum transaction throughput and low latency, assuming that standard security best practices will inherently satisfy regulatory requirements. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in advanced VMware vSphere design, where the technical requirements for performance and scalability must be balanced against the operational constraints and security mandates imposed by regulatory frameworks. The challenge lies in translating abstract regulatory requirements into concrete technical design decisions, ensuring compliance without compromising the core functionality and efficiency of the vSphere environment. The stakeholder perspective is critical because different groups will prioritize different aspects, leading to potential conflicts that require careful negotiation and justification based on established best practices and regulatory adherence. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough understanding of the specific regulatory framework applicable to the organization's industry and geographic location. This involves detailed analysis of relevant VMware vSphere 8 X security hardening guides, compliance checklists, and any industry-specific mandates, e.g., HIPAA for healthcare, PCI DSS for finance, GDPR for data privacy. The design must then demonstrably map each regulatory control to specific vSphere configurations, policies, and operational procedures. This ensures that the design not only meets technical performance goals, but also provides auditable evidence of compliance, mitigating legal and financial risks. This approach aligns with the principle of security by design and demonstrates due diligence in protecting sensitive data and maintaining operational integrity as mandated by regulatory bodies. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to solely focus on achieving the highest possible performance metrics without adequately considering the regulatory implications. This could lead to configurations that violate security policies, expose sensitive data, or fail compliance audits, resulting in significant penalties and reputational damage. This approach fails to acknowledge the paramount importance of regulatory adherence in regulated industries. Another incorrect approach would be to overimplement security controls to the point where they severely degrade performance or introduce operational complexity that hinders legitimate business functions. While security is crucial, it must be balanced with usability and efficiency. An overly restrictive approach might technically meet some regulatory checkboxes, but could be impractical and ultimately lead to workarounds that undermine overall security and compliance. This fails to consider the holistic impact of design choices. A third incorrect approach would be to assume that generic security best practices are sufficient without verifying their alignment with the specific regulatory framework. Different regulations have unique requirements and interpretations of security. Relying on general knowledge without specific validation can lead to gaps in compliance that are only discovered during an audit, necessitating costly and disruptive remediation efforts. This demonstrates a lack of specific due diligence required by regulatory compliance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, starting with a comprehensive understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape. This involves engaging with compliance officers and legal counsel to clarify requirements. The design process should then integrate compliance considerations from the outset, rather than treating them as an afterthought. This means actively seeking out and applying VMware's official security and hardening guides that are relevant to the specific compliance needs. Regular review and validation against regulatory checklists, coupled with proactive engagement with stakeholders to manage expectations and trade-offs, are essential for successful and compliant vSphere designs.